There are only 2 weeks remaining in the 2024 college football season for the NAIA and actually pretty much all levels of college football, but we're specifically talking NAIA football here tonight on Midwest Sportsnet. We're experimenting just a little bit here in Studio B. Love to get your take on that and see how things are going. I know we've worked on a couple of things. We still see some issues with lighting, so bear with us on that. And no graphics tonight. Sorry, no graphics tonight, but we're going to talk about 46 games on the docket. Now, we believe here at Midwest Sportsnet, and by we, generally a lot of times it's but I believe that there are roughly 34 teams that still have an opportunity to make it into the field of the playoffs, 33 other than Dickinson State, whom we know is already in. But there are 46 games on the docket this weekend. Lots and lots of good football out there. Shout out really quickly to Michael. Hey, good evening. And you know what? It is good to see you as well. God bless you, sir. Appreciate seeing your name coming up there. Kaiser football, that's going to be the first thing we talk about because we talk about the Sun Conference and the Appalachian Conference pretty much first just about every week. I've always been a proponent of reading from left to right, but, you know, there's something about going from east to west. It's just the path the sun follows. So, hey, Dale, thanks for watching tonight. Sure appreciate seeing your name come up there as well. As always, and roll stings. And if you are watching us in the live chat tonight, please feel free to let us know from where you are watching. Or if you don't want to do that, let us know for whom you are rooting. Elisa, hey, man, live tonight. I was going to tell you, I did see your comment last night, or actually this morning's when I saw it. And so I appreciate you getting to watch the show a little bit from the home state that I am in right now, although she's completely in a different part of the state. I'm more in the southeastern part. She's more in the northwestern part. That's all right. We can still get along. Let's go ahead and get right into this really quickly then. And I'm sorry, again, no graphics tonight. I apologize for that sincerely, but it just came a point where that got to be too much. I will tell you, like I said, experimenting just a little bit. I experimented. I'm still experimenting with the beard. The beard grew out when I was in the hospital, and Mrs. Patriot or Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet, actually, Patriot's a different channel that I have of the newspaper have. Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet liked the beard, so we're keeping it. It has maybe a little bit too much ultra blonde in it for my liking, but let's go ahead and get on into that. Hey, Dave. Man, it's good to see your name come up there as well tonight. Let's talk really quickly before we get to those stayings. Let's talk just a little bit about a few other things. Yeah, new background. We're experimenting tonight, so bear with us in that. And if, by the way, one last thing, and I'll get to Kaiser and Florida Memorial. Sorry, really quickly, Michael. I know we do want to talk about that. There's only so much I can do about this, and Jody, Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet, tells me lots of times that I need more makeup. I don't know exactly. We'll deal with the lighting in time, but we're getting there, so that's all right. Florida Memorial and Kaiser. This is a big game. Let's get started with that. Florida Memorial 5-2-1, 4-1 in Sun Conference play, still with an opportunity to get a part of the conference championship or get the conference championship outright. There isn't actually a scenario where that happens, but at least a share of it. And with the win over Kaiser, that would be big. Kaiser is 7-0 overall, 4-0 in conference play. So this is still determining a possibility of a playoff spot. So we keep Florida Memorial in our potential playoff teams. If you saw the show last night, Florida Memorial up there, 5-2-1, 4-1 overall. Defeated Thomas last week, 75-21. Kaiser over Weber International, 34-20. Florida Memorial has Walter Wilbon on the team for the Lions. 12.8 points per game Wilbon's putting up. That's good enough for fourth in the NAI. He has 14 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns. But Andrew Burnett on the other side, he has become the featured back of late as Meisinger has been out, and Burnett has stepped up and stepped into the role very, very well. He's putting up 110.3 rushing yards per game. That is 9th in the NAIA. He also has 10 rushing touchdowns. And when you consider that he shares a backfield for the most of the season with Meisinger, 10 rushing touchdowns is a pretty good number. So props to Burnett in that. Michael says it is a big game, and I agree entirely. Trusting Kaiser to go big in this game. I think Kaiser's defense shows up big in this game. The offense is going to do what the offense does, but I think the defense is what shows up and shuts down Wilbon in this And Midwest Sportsnet is picking Kaiser to remain undefeated for the season and making its push. By the way, we have Kaiser already in the playoffs. I think they're a lock for the playoffs, but Florida Memorial still with an opportunity to sneak in there. Number 5, St. Thomas taking on Thomas on the road in Thomasville, Georgia. I wanted to say Thomas as many times as possible there. St. Thomas 6-1 overall. 4-1 in Sun Conference play. Thomas is 1-6. This is the second meeting between these two schools. St. Thomas won 84-0 in the first meeting. That was last season. St. Thomas, by the way, led by David Hayes, 11 receiving touchdowns, good enough to be tied for second in the NAIA. And how about Rontavious Farmer? We've been talking about him as being the Florida Collegiate Rushing King. That's right. Rontavious Farmer, the all-time leader in rushing yards for a college running back or college back of any kind to put on the uniform and play at the collegiate level. Now 5,088 rushing yards. Farmer with 117 rushing yards per game. That is good enough for 7th in the NAI. And by the way, sticking with Kaiser for just a little bit longer, Jana, thank you very much on that. The defense is fantastic. And that really was, I went back to it on Wednesday night. I'll say it again. I fully believe the defense was what made the difference in that push in toward a national championship last year for the Seahawks. We'll see what happens. Also from the Sun Conference, again, no graphics tonight. Thank you very much, by the way, for sticking with us on that. Number 19, Southeastern. And there are a number of people that believe Southeastern still has an outside chance for the playoffs. I think it is slim, but at 5-2 overall, 2-2 in Sun Conference play, you get a couple more victories, maybe you still have the opportunity. Southeastern on the road at Ave Maria, 3-5 overall, 2-3 in Sun Conference play. Southeastern is 7-4 all time, having won 34-10 last year. It's the 12th meeting, and Midwest Sportsnet is saying Southeastern is going to win this 12th meeting. Shout out to Jeff, by the way. Roll Stangs, another Stangs supporter. We'll get to Morningside here in just a moment. And thanks to everybody for getting in the chat tonight. Really appreciate that. Michael, the Kaiser defense is going to be hard to overcome. I agree with you entirely on that. And it's another reason why we're picking Kaiser to win the ball game this week. Weber International, 3-5 at Warner, 0-6, 13th meeting. This series is tied at 6 games apiece. We're going to go ahead and take the Warriors in this one over Warner. It's been a struggle for the Royals this year, and I don't know that they're going to pick up the game here, even at home. Let's move to the Appalachian. Kentucky Christian coming off a blowout of St. Andrews, 85-26 last weekend. Jet Engel, the redshirt freshman, remember that name, folks, because it is going to come up big, I believe, in upcoming years. Reinhardt at home taking on Kentucky Christian. And the Knights on the road taking on the Eagles. Kentucky Christian 2-7, 1-4 in Appalachian play. Reinhardt 5-4, but here's where it gets interesting. Reinhardt has just been sticking around since that loss to Pikeville at the start of the conference slate. 3-1 now, and because of the Pikeville loss last week, Reinhardt's still in it. A team that's made it to 9 consecutive years of the playoffs, looking to make it a 10th. The opportunity remains there. There is a 3-way tie at the top of the Appalachian Conference right now. We won't get into the tiebreaker because I don't want to get frustrated about it on this particular show. We'll see what happens this weekend and see if it even is something that comes into play. But Kentucky Christian at Reinhardt, we're taking the Eagles in this one. Reinhardt in 9 previous meetings is 8-1 all time against Kentucky Christians, having won last year 56-0. We're taking Reinhardt. Point with the big time victory over Pikeville this past weekend, and that is what has thrown things into a tizzy, if you will, in the Appalachian standings. 3 teams at the top with just 1 loss. Point is one of those. The Skyhawks coming off a big win over Pikeville, 23-21 on a last-second field goal. It's the 8th meeting all-time for Point and Union Commonwealth as the Bulldogs come into Point. Both teams with 3 wins overall on the season. Point still playing for an opportunity to play in the playoffs, and it's there in front of them. Destiny not necessarily in their own hands, but if you win out with just 1 loss in that conference schedule, then things become very interesting. Point taking on Union Commonwealth this week. We're taking point with a lot to play for. Bluefield at St. Andrews. The Knights are yet to win a game this year. Bluefield 3-6 on the season. It's the 8th meeting all-time. Bluefield is 4-3 all-time, won last year by 35 points. We're taking Bluefield in this one. We move over to the Mid-South Conference. Number 12, Georgetown, taking on number 24, Campbellsville. And this really, there's so much on the line in this one. Georgetown, 4-0 in Mid-South Conference play. Campbellsville, 3-1 in Mid-South Conference play. The 35th meeting between these two programs, Georgetown with a huge lead, 29-5 all-time, won last year 35-7 in this one. Georgetown off a victory of Cumberland's 19-16. It was close. Defense steps up. Campbellsville's defense steps up, holding Bethel in check with a 14-10 victory last week as well. Georgetown's led by Darius Neal, averaging 119.4 rushing yards per game. That's good enough for 6th in the NAIA. He has 8 rushing touchdowns as well. Georgetown at 6-2. Another loss might keep them out of that playoff field. 3 losses on the season. It might not. We still have Georgetown, though, with that undefeated conference record. Campbellsville still looking good. 8-1 overall, 3-1 in conference play. Campbellsville doesn't need this win as badly as Georgetown does. Now, of course, the Tigers, the Campbellsville Tigers, actually, wanting to make something happen here, an offense that's been effective all year long. Georgetown's defense has been formidable all season long. We're going to go with Georgetown here to win the 30th time in this series, and the Tigers on the road, keeping that Mid-South record unblemished. It's going to be a close game. We think the defense of Georgetown will be able to hold serve in this one, if you forgive the crossover of metaphors there, and holding Campbellsville in check. A very, very tough Georgetown team on the road. Bethel, we talked about the fact that the Wildcats offense has been a little bit less than what we've seen in the past. Bethel on the road at Lindsey Wilson this week. Bethel 5-3, Lindsey Wilson 5-2. The 11th meeting all time between the two schools. Lindsey Wilson having won 6 of the 10 previous meetings, but Bethel won last year 34-8. And that really was we mentioned it earlier, the de facto playoff game between the two schools, getting the Wildcats in. Bethel lost last week. Lindsey Wilson, a big win over Cumberland last week. Lindsey Wilson at 3-1 in Mid-South play. We believe the Blue Raiders are going to take this one and stay in the hunt for a Mid-South title. But again, it depends on what Georgetown does and going from there. Cumberland 6-3 at Faulkner 2-6. 13th meeting between the two schools. Faulkner owns the all-time lead 7-5, but Cumberland won last year 10-3 in the season finale. We're taking the 6-3 Phoenix in this one over Faulkner for the win. Let's move on now to the Mid-States Conference, and we'll go back and forth between the Mid-East and the Midwest here. The number 3 team in the country is Indiana Wesleyan, 8-1 overall, 3-0 in Mid-East play on the road at Siena Heights. The magic number, by the way, for Indiana Wesleyan is 1 for a playoff spot, especially with a win. Indiana Wesleyan, the Wildcats, led by Ryan Whitwell, who Roosevelt Cash stepped in last week and took care of business. Whitwell with 120.1 rushing yards per game, still at number 5 in the NAIA. This will be the 7th meeting between these two schools, and Indiana Wesleyan has defeated Siena Heights 5 of the previous 6 times. We think Indiana Wesleyan will be in the playoffs anyway. The magic number is 1, and with a Wildcat win, that would secure the Mid-East Division and that playoff spot on Saturday. We're picking the Wildcats in that one. St. Francis, Indiana, hosting St. Xavier on Saturday. St. Francis is the team that Midwest Sportsnet really thinks is going to come out of the Midwest Conference. 3-0 in divisional play, or the Midwest Division. 3-0 in divisional play, 7-2 overall. And, a shout out right there. Let's go ahead and do that. Shout out really quickly to Burnett. Well, we've promoted him here, so we're going to keep on promoting him there as well. But St. Xavier 4-5, lost last week to Marion 31-20. St. Francis of Indiana defeated St. Francis of Illinois last week 28-20. Joshua Kolka continuing to have a great season, 29 passing touchdowns, 5th in the NAI We are going to take St. Francis of Indiana in this one. All right, moving on along then. And again, sorry, no graphics tonight. We'll get that in place. Obviously, we'll have it in place for the top 5 performances on Sunday, but we'll try to get that in place for the final week of the season, so you can see that just right up here over my left shoulder. Lawrence Tech on the road at Concordia. The Blue Devils are 2-6. The Cardinals are 4-5, but 2-1 in divisional play after the loss last week at Indiana Wesleyan. It's the 5th meeting all time between these two programs. It will be the final meeting between these two programs. Concordia has won all 4 previous meetings, and Midwest Sportsnet picks Concordia to win a 5th time, as this would put Concordia in position to try to have a winning record in its final season. The Cardinals program, all of the athletic department shutting down following the 24-25 season. We're picking Concordia in this one at home. Taylor, 7-2, on the road at Madonna, 0-9. The Crusaders have lost 39 straight games, and so Taylor's 4-0 all time. We picked Taylor to win a 5th game in this series. We picked Madonna to lose a 40th consecutive game. Crusaders working hard, just don't have it all there yet. And this season, it's not the season for Madonna. So let's go on from there. And a shout out really quickly. Let me see, Michael. I actually, you know what? I'm working on something like that. I had some T-shirts, and I'll wear a T-shirt one of these times too. We had those made. We would give them out when we would go to do Midwest Sports Saturday. We used to give out the Midwest Sportsnet T-shirts on the road when we were doing our version of College Game Day, and I don't think we have any of those left. But if this works out and you really want to get one of those, we can find a way. We can find a way to get a Midwest Sportsnet shirt, definitely. But thanks, by the way, for that, and thanks for letting me know. We're getting there without the graphics. Burnett, the kid is a beast, and absolutely he is, and fun to watch too, and fun to follow along. Kaiser has provided a lot for us to watch in the last 3 years especially, and I think it's really cool, by the way, too, that people recognize that just because Kaiser lost 3 games a couple of years ago to a Division I school and 2 Division II schools, they were still a force to be reckoned with. And did you notice this year, 2 Division II schools on the schedule for Kaiser again this year, and no losses? So this NAIA team is playing with those Division II schools. We're taking Tyler over Madonna, by the way, really quickly. All right, Hanover Division III school at Defiance, still with that transition schedule. 44th meeting between the two. Defiance won last year. We don't know that the Yellow Jackets have it to do it this year. Hanover's having a better season. We're taking Hanover in this one over Defiance. Defiance in the Mid-States Football Association, but not really factoring in to the standings. Judson on the road at Marion. Judson 1-7, Marion 6-2. Marion won last year in the first meeting between these two programs. It was as a Knights win, 40-6 in the season opener last year. And we're taking the Knights in this one as well. Marion with the win, moving to 7-2. And with a victory for Marion, this might put them back on our board as a possible team. We think Marion's on the outside looking in right now. That may or may not be the case. Of course, the committee has a lot to look at. One series of the ARC rankings, not ratings, has already come out. We have that online. They have it, by the way, online at the NAIA website. You can find that and look at it again. We've talked about it before. We'll see how that continues to play out. By the way, a really good broadcast last night over on Victory Sports Network. If you saw Jason Danley visiting with Dr. Jesse Godding from now Nelson University, used to be Southwestern Assemblies of God University down there in Waxahachie, and some good information about how a lot of these things go on, things we've talked about here, some of the things we've talked about here on this channel as well. And, it addresses some of the frustrations that I think you look at. I won't go too far into this. We need to preview this week as well. But I get a little frustrated with the seeds as becoming just numbers beside a name and not true seeds. And we know that it's a financial issue and it has to be addressed. But still, it's just one of those things. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get a little closer to the playoffs. Olivet Nazarene at St. Francis of Illinois, 32nd meeting. St. Francis of Illinois, 20-11 all time. St. Francis of Illinois lost last week to St. Francis of Indiana, but the Fighting Tumulties are going to come back and win this one, a big time game over Olivet Nazarene. And by the way, the Tigers still in the hunt for that Midwest divisional title as well. So this is a big game for the two, but we're going to take St. Francis. Sam Tumulty, 16 rushing touchdowns, 4th in the NAIA this season. He's scoring 12.3 points per game. That's 5th in the NAIA, and he's not the only Tumulty that's putting points on the board. All right, we are moving now to the Hart Conference. Let me stop really quickly and say thank you all for watching tonight. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. It really does help us a lot. We're pushing for another milestone number, and you have the opportunity now, if you'd like to join as a member, and that kind of helps us to keep things going here with the channel and provide the coverage that we do for small college sports. We work, and our emphasis is mainly the NAIA and Division II, the NCAA Division II. We cover small college sports throughout the Midwest and beyond. That includes Kaiser as well. Some of you may look and see Midwest Sports Net. Why is he talking about Kaiser as much? Because we like Kaiser, number one, and we just enjoy talking about sports in the NAIA all the way around. So you may consider joining the channel, but definitely subscribe if you have the opportunity. All right, to the Hart Conference, North Division, and we'll go back and forth between the North and the South. The number 2 team in the country is Grandview. We believe that Grandview will be in the playoffs no matter what happens the final 2 weeks of the season. However, still with an opportunity to keep a streak alive at 58 consecutive regular season games, 58 consecutive Hart Conference victories for the Vikings as well at Peru State. This was a big game last year. Peru State came in with just 1 loss and an opportunity to maybe knock the Vikings off and try to get that playoff spot. Just 1 loss this year. Same opportunity is there. It's the 10th meeting between the two schools. Grandview's 8-1 all time. The only Peru State victory in this series, you have to go back to the inaugural season for Grandview back in 2008, the season finale, and the Bobcats came away with an 18-17 victory over Grandview. Since that time, it's been 8 straight Grandview wins. We're taking Grandview in this one to move to 5-0 in Hart North play. Another team that's looking to move to 5-0 in Hart North play is Graceland, hosting Missouri Baptist this week. First meeting between these two programs. Graceland with a win last week, 28-23. Missouri Baptist with a win last week, 29-23. I think it's just going to be too much Yellow Jacket offense for Missouri Baptist, which, by the way, second season in the Hart. Last year was a big-time struggle for the Spartans coming through. They were 5-3 this year, and 3-2 in Hart South play. Well, guess what? The Graceland Yellow Jackets, that's just going to be too tough an opponent. 7-2 overall, 4-0 in divisional play. Cade Ross, 316.3 passing yards per game, good enough for 3rd in the NAIA. Also with 31 passing touchdowns, good enough for 3rd in the NAIA. And he has the leading receiver in the NAIA as well. You would think getting those numbers up there. Yeah, Gerald Moreau, 156.9 receiving yards per game, 20 receiving touchdowns per game. He's scoring 13.3 points per game himself. That's number 3, by the way, in the NAIA. We're taking Graceland in this. And if you didn't know already, Graceland is our dark horse pick to make a run deep into the playoffs. But for the Yellow Jackets, they have to get there. 2 losses on the schedule right now. It's likely going to come down to that game next week in Des Moines against Grandview. All right, let's see here. Kaiser, only 4 home games the entire season. Lots of travel this year. Well, if it works out, by the way, Michael, for Kaiser, they should be playing a lot of home games in the playoffs. It should be a lot of teams traveling to get to them. And that's going to throw all kinds of seeding all over the place, trying to get teams to Kaiser and trying to get the right teams to Kaiser. And that's going to be this is one time when I really do feel bad for the selection committee, because that's going to be a seeding nightmare if Kaiser continues to win. And yeah, glad they're going to be playing at home. Ashton, by the way, shout out to Ashton. Roll Saints Even though there's no brown and gold up there, we still picked the Fighting Saints, Ashton, already a little earlier in the show. And by the way, Grandview does have a great team this year. Grandview and Graceland, the schedule makers did well, by the way, in the Heart to make that the season finale, because it's likely to come down to that. Back to the Heart, Central Methodist 1-8 at number 11 Benedictine. The Ravens are 7-2, coming off a heartbreaking loss on the road in Olathe last week. Well, they're back at home in Atchison this week, and they're taking on Central Methodist, a team that they've won 34 out of 38 times against in the all-time series. Last year, a 59-21 win over Central Methodist. We're taking Benedictine in this one to stay alive in the hunt for that Heart South title, but it all depends on what happens in this game. Number 15, Baker, on the road at number 8, Mid-America Nazarene. Of course, those rankings are according to the official NAIA rankings, not ratings. Mid-America Nazarene, 8-0 overall, 4-0 in Heart South play. Baker, 7-1 overall, 3-1 in Heart South play. Last year, Baker undid all the Pioneers were able to do, even with the big win over Benedictine at the end. Baker stuck around with a 40-7 victory over Mid-America Nazarene last year and really got out early and never looked back. Never took the feet off the gas or the foot off the gas. Well, I mean, it's a team, so I don't know how many people have their feet on the gas at that point in time. Doesn't matter. Mid-America Nazarene was defeated last year on the road. This year, they're taking on Baker in Olathe. A big home win last week over Benedictine. Can it be a big home win this week over Baker? We're picking the Pioneers. We've stuck with the Pioneers all year long. We're going to say the Pioneers get a big victory. It's likely going to be close again. Will it come down to the final seconds and 1 point again? Oh, that would be fun to watch. It'd be nerve-wracking, I'm sure, for everyone on both fan bases. But that'd be fun. We're picking number 8, Mid-America Nazarene, to continue to put themselves in a position for a playoff spot. William Woods at Missouri Valley, first meeting between the two because it's the inaugural season for the Owls. We are taking Missouri Valley at home in this one. The 3-5 Vikings over the Owls in this one. William Penn at home over Culver Stockton. We're also taking the Statesmen at home in this one. 19th meeting between the Wildcats and the Statesmen. William Penn has won 12 of the previous 18 games, including last year a 21-point victory. And Clark, 1-8 at home against 2-7 St. Ambrose. The Fighting Bees picking up a couple of wins. None of them, though, in divisional play in the Heart since making the move into the Heart Conference this season. First meeting between the two schools. We're going to take the Pride at home to pick up their first divisional win. 0-4, both those teams. All right, let's move on now to the GPAC. And shout out to Todd. Hey, Todd, Valor up, by the way. Appreciate the comment, too, about Coach Collins. If you didn't know, Coach Josh Collins, the Southwestern volleyball coach, had 200 wins. We talked about that on the channel a little bit earlier. Appreciate Todd watching that one. Shout out to Todd and Valor up. And you know what? Let's talk. We'll talk some KCAC here in just a moment. Let's get through the GPAC first, though. Number 6, Morningside on the road, taking on not a ranked team this week. It's on the road at Waldorf. First meeting between the two. Morningside, after a humongous win last week in which the defense stepped up. Now, we talked about Kaiser's defense, and we promoted Kaiser's defense an awful lot. How about that Morningside defense? Isaac Pingle, 10.2 tackles per game. Big game last week as well. He's 4th in the NAIA in that category. We talk about the offense for Morningside an awful lot. Zach Chevalier, 364.6 passing yards per game, tops in the NAIA, 31 passing touchdowns, good enough for 4th. We talk about Drew Sellen, 129.9 receiving yards per game. That's good enough for 2nd in the country. And 9 receiving touchdowns. He's tied for 9th in the country in that category as well. We enjoy talking about the Morningside offense because it's always going to be a prominent part of the game for Morningside. But the defense really stepped it up last week, holding the Northwestern Red Raiders, defending national runners-up, to just 7 points. Now, I know we've talked about this before. We can talk about it again. The simple fact of the matter is it's a different Northwestern team this year. It doesn't matter. It's Coach Matt McCarty. It's Red Raiders that are playing with that jersey, and they are fighting hard against a Morningside team, and the defense stepped up, did its job, got 13 points. First meeting between these two teams. Morningside has won 8 consecutive games. Waldorf has lost 12 consecutive games. We're going to say that, you know what? Both of those streaks are held intact, and go from there. There we go. How about this one? I'm going to say, listen, Dale, I just got used to saying Chevalier last year and hoping I was pronouncing it right. So Z-Chevs, I don't know, to Selling. That's a good one. We'll leave that one up there for just a moment there. It's a good connection right there. And we're taking Morningside, obviously, in this one to keep Waldorf out of the win column. And by the way, it's going to be a struggle next week for Waldorf as well. First season in the GPAC, it's not been a very kind welcome, at least for football. Northwestern on the road at Dordt. The number 13 Northwestern Red Raiders on the road taking on the number 7 Dordt Defenders. We talked about this last night. Dordt still in the hunt for a playoff berth. And with 2 wins, we think Dort's in. That would be 9-1. With 2 wins, we think Dort's in. With 2 losses, at this point for Northwestern, the Red Raiders are in a bind and really, really need to get a victory here. 17-0 all-time against Dordt in this series. Northwestern lost to Morningside last week. Dordt defeated Briar Cliff last week. Let's go back to defense. If defense held sway against Northwestern last week, holding the Red Raiders just 7 points, the Defenders' defense is playing at that level as well, and played that well last year, is playing that well this year. Our pick for Midwest Sportsnet is to take the number 7 Dordt Defenders at home. And again, that puts the Red Raiders in a real bind. It also helps a team that's on a bye week this week, Concordia. The Bulldogs are 7-2 overall on the bye week. They close out the season at Midland next week. We'll see how it all plays out for them. But we're taking Dordt in this one. Dakota Wesleyan at home taking on Briar Cliff. The 3-6 Tigers are hosting the 2-7 Chargers. Dakota Wesleyan owns a 13-8 all-time series lead between the two. We're picking Dakota Wesleyan in this one. Midland at Doane, 71st meeting between these two programs. Midland won last year 27-10. The 5-4 Warriors, we are picking them to secure a winning season with a victory at Doane to move to 6-4 overall. And how about Mount Marty just continuing to roll? Mount Marty 5-4 on the road at Hastings 2-8. Mount Marty with 5 victories. That is a program best for the Mustangs. We are going to pick them to do the same and secure a winning record with a victory at Hastings. Hastings 3-0 all-time in this series. Mount Marty flips the script this Saturday, we believe. All right, let's move on to the KCAC. The 2 big games of the week are in the Kessinger division. We've been talking about this division. There are not enough playoff spots to satisfy the needs of the Kessinger division. So you have to play it out. Number 25, Southwestern, 8-1. At number 21, Evangel, 7-1. This is the 5th meeting between the two. Evangel, 4-0 all-time, won last year 17-14. Southwestern defeated Bethany last week 63-7. Evangel lost to McPherson 34-27. That's a first ever KCAC loss for Evangel. I mean, it really is impressive. 18 consecutive wins to open their time in the program, and then losing last week against McPherson. But the Valor are at home. And by at home, I mean down the road in Nixon. Not playing in Springfield yet. They will be doing that, I believe, sometime in the near future. But right now playing at Nixa, but it's the home field. Southwestern's led by Braden Howell. 33 passing touchdowns for Howell. That is leading the NAIA this season. But don't forget about the Evangel defense and what it means to this team. The offense, no slouch. Eric Williams, 110.6 rushing yards per game, 8th in the NAIA, 10 rushing touchdowns as well. This is a very tough pick. One team is going to wind up with 2 losses in that Kessinger division. The other team's going to stay in the hunt for the divisional title. Southwestern wanting to put itself in a position for a possible at-large bid if it can't overcome what McPherson has in that divisional record. We're going to take the Mound Builders on the road. Sorry, Todd. I'm really sorry, Todd. But we're taking the Mound Builders on the road in this one. A little bit too much offense, and we think it's a balanced offense for the number 25 Mound Builders. We are taking Southwestern on the road in this one. Number 20 Friends, 8-1 overall, 2-1 though in Kessinger play. McPherson, 8-1 overall, 3-0 in Kessinger play, and that's where the Bulldogs have the big time advantage right now. The only team that is undefeated in Kessinger play. 75th meeting between the two. My goodness, I mean, we're talking about some big time rivalries here. Friends has won 41, McPherson won 33 all time. Friends won 66-17 last year. And the Bulldogs probably not too happy about that. Like to flip the script at home. We've gone with Friends all year long. We're not going to go against them right now. 410 rushing yards per game, put up 452 rushing yards last week. If Friends holds on to the ball, and that's, again, turnovers, the big issue. And it wasn't just fumbles against Evangel, big-time interception thrown near the end of the game as Friends went to the passing game away from the rushing game. So we're going to go with Friends hangs on to the ball in this one on the road at McPherson and really, really knots things up in the Kessinger division. Friends on the road. One more Kessinger division matchup, 3-6 Bethany at Bethel, 4-5. It's a transition year for Bethel. We know this. But again, we talked about this I don't recall the last time we talked about it. It may have been yesterday. I don't know. We were talking about recency bias. I think it was yesterday because I think once I started talking about recency bias, I watched the view count go down. So I won't talk about it too long. If all you've seen is Bethany football in the last 3 to 5 to 7 years, you haven't seen Swedes football at its best. Bethany owns a 52-29 all-time record over Bethel, 82nd meeting. But Bethel right now, again, Bethany of late, Bethel won 27-3 in 2023 and has won 5 straight in the series. We're going to pick Bethel in this one, but I just keep saying Bethany's going to trip somebody up. We'll see who it winds up being. All right. So, Ashton, let's really quickly get to your question as we move over to the Bissell division. Don't know when we're going to talk about, talk about the postseason and who gets in. What do you think about the Mid-States, Midwest, and can 2 teams get into the playoffs? All right. First, Ashton, we have the video on it last night, and we will talk about the playoffs again next Wednesday night as well. The live stream on Wednesday night will tell you who we believe are the potential teams heading into the final week of the season. Do I believe that the Midwest can get 2 teams in the playoffs? Specifically, and if you're talking about St. Francis of Illinois, if you're talking about the Saints, I think the loss last week keeps them out at 6-2, unless something happens to trip up Indiana, because St. Francis of Indiana has, in essence, a game and a half lead in the playoffs because you have the head-to-head matchup. So I think it's going to take 2 losses. Marion could slip in there as well, but Marion at 6-2 overall, St. Francis at 6-2 overall. The committee has to really, really like your division. And that's really what it comes down to. If you're going to get somebody other than the divisional winner, which it's happened, it happened last year. But if you're going to get somebody other than the divisional winner, they're going to really have to like that. And St. Francis of Illinois has to finish. I think you can't lose anymore. Marion can't lose anymore. Realistically, St. Francis of Indiana could get a win against St. Xavier and then lose one and lock up that playoff spot. But I think it's a real challenge. I personally, at this point, and it may change, but at this point, I think there's only one team coming out of the mid-states. We talk about the playoff spots next Wednesday night, so be sure and tune in for that as well. All right, let me get back down here. Without graphics, it's tough for me to keep up. There we go. Avila, let's go to the Bissell. Avila 2-7 at Sterling 2-7. 7th meeting, Avila 5-1 all time. We're taking Avila in this one. All right, Ottawa on the road at Kansas Wesleyan. We think Kansas Wesleyan is primed to take the playoff spot from the Bissell Division, 3-0 in divisional play right now. Ottawa, last year's Bissell Division champions. We're taking the Coyotes in this one. And how about that? We got a Denison, Texas shout out there. Listening at halftime of the Jacket game. Well, thanks, Josh, for listening. Sure is nice to see your name come up there. Always nice to see your name come up there. I appreciate you stopping by tonight. One more from the Bissell Division. St. Mary 1-7 at Tabor, 4-5. Tabor, we are taking the Blue Jays in this one at home. And then we move on now to the North Star. 2 games in the North Star. The number 17 team in the country is in. The lone team that is in the playoffs right now in the NAIA is Dickinson State. 7-1, 6-0 overall on the road at Valley City State. Dickinson State, 50 wins in this series. 50, 29-4 all time. Has won 8 straight in the series, including a 19-6 victory earlier this year. We're taking the Blue Hawks to continue their run. Dakota State 5-3. Mayville State 4-5. Mayville State lost 13-12 earlier this year. We think they avenged this one at home. We're taking the Comets at home in this one. COMETS. Comets are the best. So we're taking Mayville State in this one. Let's go to the Sooner as Langston on the road at number 9, Texas Wesleyan. I don't know that Texas Wesleyan is already in. And Ashton, to your point about asking that, I'm not going to say Texas Wesleyan is already in. I said this last night. I'm going to say it again. Texas Wesleyan needs to win out because one loss, especially tied with OUAZ at some point in time, and who knows what else could happen. It would just be an OUAZ tie at this point in time. I'm not sure the committee favors more than one team coming out of the Sooner, even if they're fantastic records. And I say that to the detriment of OUAZ, who's on a bye week this week, can't do anything about it, just one loss. I think that they're both worthy candidates. And if they both win out, Texas Wesleyan and OUAZ, I think they both warrant that attention from the selection committee. We'll see what happens. But if the Rams go undefeated, I will say this. I will say it every week through the remainder of the season and every single show. If the Rams go undefeated this season, in the regular season, win the conference championship, they deserve to play a home game in the first game they play. Whether it's a second round game or not, it needs to be a home game. The Rams are number 9 in the country. That might be a challenge to overcome that because the top 6 teams, according to the NAIA rankings, not ratings, will be the top 6 seeds in the championship series. That could leave a 7 and an 8 and put the Texas Wesleyan Rams at number 9, looking at a road game. So the Rams need to go ahead and win. And obviously there could be some movement above them in the rankings, not ratings, but we'll see how that plays out. Texas Wesleyan last week defeated Texas College 70-7. And for the Langston Lions, they lost to OUAZ last week, and that really did a number to their playoff chances. It's going to be tough for the Lions to get in. We don't think they're going to get in. But we're also going to take the Rams at home, 8-0. Ernest Caesar, how about this? 27 rushing touchdowns. That leads the NAIA. He's also scoring 24 points per game by himself. That leads the NAIA. Ernest Caesar and the Rams with the win in this one. Louisiana Christian 3-6 at Arkansas Baptist. The Wildcats are 2-0 all time in this series. We think they're going to go 3-0 with a win on the road. Panhandle State 4-4 at Nelson in Waxahachie. And this game is going to be one of those games you can watch live. Great video broadcast from the folks at the Nelson Sports Network, Nelson University Sports Network. If you haven't had a chance to watch one of the broadcasts, you need to watch it. But I'm sorry, they're probably not going to like this. We're taking Panhandle State 9-3 all time in this series. We think that the Aggies are going to win on the road in this one. And also from the Sooner Athletic Conference, Wayland Baptist 4-4. Texas College smarting from a loss last week, but back home in Tyler this week, 5-3. Wayland Baptist 8-3 all time in the series, won last year by 2. We're going to take the Steers, however. And by the way, write this down if you need to. Just make sure you remember it between now and next year. Both of these two teams are trending upward. Wayland Baptist and Texas College. Keep that in mind. This one's an interesting one. John Melvin at North American. The Stallions are 0-9 overall, but we talked about this before briefly. We're going to say it again. John Melvin with accreditation now. These are now countable NAIA games. for the Millers. So if you have John Melvin on your schedule in the future in football, basketball, whatever it is, it's a countable NAIA game. And we think North American is going to be able to count this one for a win. We're taking the Stallions at home in this one. All right, to the Frontier Conference, our final conference of the night. 45 minutes in tonight. Thank you for watching if you're still with us tonight and for being in the chat, and just God bless you all for being a part of all of it. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel, Midwest Sportsnet. We talk about small college sports and more throughout the Midwest and beyond. Let us know from where you're watching, or maybe who your favorite NAIA football team is. This is the final, well, not the final big game. It's the big of the big games. I need to find a graphic for that. Big games. This one is one. Number 14, Carroll, 7-1, 6-0 in Frontier Conference play. Number 4, Montana Western, 7-1, 5-1 in Frontier Conference play. The 117th meeting between the two. Carroll's won 75 of them. Montana Western 39, and they tied a couple times as well. I'm not opposed to the tie in college football. I know it's a bygone thing, but I always thought it was interesting, and I kind of like that. Carroll won 38-17 last year. Carroll's magic number is 1 with a win. It's not just a Montana Western loss at this point in time would be that one, but both are going to happen at one time, so you'll get 2 out of it. Carroll with a win would secure the Frontier Conference championship and automatic bid to the playoff. And for the Saints, with the most backloaded schedule in all of the NAIA, it has been the word that's often thrown around here, not just on this channel, mainly on some other NAIA channels, gauntlet. It's been a gauntlet. It really has. And Carroll has lived up to it. 6-0, beating Southern Oregon last week, 21-17. Montana Western with a big win over MSU Northern, 56-14. Montana Western, 304.7 passing yards per game. Michael Palandri leading the way. That's 4th in the country for Palandri. Jack Perka had 461 passing yards a couple of weeks ago. It's an offense that's lost some of its running backs. We'll see how that plays. We think that Carroll, obviously with its defense, has what it takes to win. They've been doing it. But we picked Montana Western back in early August, and we're going to stick with the Bulldogs at home. Michael Palandri, Eli Norse. This is a big offense, and if the defense holds at home, they're in Dillon. We're taking the number 4 team in the country in this one. And Saints, we've been with you all along, but we're going to take Montana Western with the win in this one. All right. MSU Northern 0-8 at number 10, Montana Tech 7-2. Tech won 28-0 last year, 39-25 all-time in the series. Lander Smith, 15 rushing touchdowns on the season, top 10 running back. We're taking the Ore Diggers at home. Number 16, Southern Oregon hosting Eastern Oregon. And the Mountaineers just continue to surprise people. A big win over College of Idaho last week. Well, maybe they didn't surprise themselves. Sorry for Coach Camp and the team. You probably didn't say you're not surprised. But Southern Oregon owns a 55-22-2 lead all time. It's the 80th meeting between these two programs. The Raiders lost to Carroll last week. Gunnar Yates, his name gets called out just about every week. 122.3 rushing yards per game, 3rd in the NAI. 24 rushing touchdowns for the year. That's 2nd in the NAI. Southern Oregon is at home. We're taking the Raiders at home in this one to win number 56 in the series. And finally, Arizona Christian 1-7 at Rocky Mountain 1-7. 2nd meeting all time between these two programs, as the Battling Bears won 52-14 last year. Arizona Christian has lost 6 straight after and lost to Montana Tech in its previous game. Rocky Mountain lost to Montana Tech in its previous game and has lost 6 straight. We're taking Rocky Mountain to win in this one. The only win for each of these teams, by the way, has come against the Lights. And MSU Northern has just had a struggle of a season. That's 46 games. We went through 46 games here tonight, and I hope that you enjoyed all of it. I hope that, I know I didn't pick everyone's team. Todd, sorry, I know I didn't get your team in on that, but I appreciate you stopping by tonight. And a big Big 200th victory. Shout out to Josh Collins, even on a football program. Okay. Next live show that we know of will be on Sunday night. It'll be the top 5 performances. Might get a Midwest Sports Saturday in this Saturday. I don't think it's going to happen. There's still a lot going on. Friday night, it's going to be senior night for my twins on the marching band field. Oh yeah, they play football there too, but on the marching band field. So that one's going to be a fun one, and may shed a tear or two. Those are children numbers 4 and 5, and they're our youngest. And so Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet and I, we're not going to be empty nesters just yet because we know they're going to go to college close, but we can talk about that a little bit later on. So Friday night, but you know what? We may do something on Saturday. We'll see, but we know for sure Sunday is the next live show, and it will be 9:00 Eastern, 8:00 Central Standard Times. As we've moved in, it's dark so much earlier. So, all right, let's put this one up here. Zach Chevalier to Sellen, Brown, Nelson, and coming soon, are we going to get a Norton sighting? That would be incredibly cool. I would love to see a Norton sighting, definitely. So that'll be fun. We'll leave that one up there for just a little bit. All right, cool. Would love to get to see that this season. So I was concerned. I didn't know if that was going to happen or not. So I'm really glad to hear that. Hopefully that happens. All right. Shout out to everybody for watching in the chat tonight. To Josh, to Dave, to Michael, Dale, Todd, Ashton, Elisa. Thank you for watching tonight. Kennedy Burnett there for the win there. Michael, definitely, and Jana. And I think I may have gotten everybody in on that. So, all right. Shout out to everybody tonight for being a part of the broadcast. I really am grateful for everyone watching, and it means a lot. I can't even tell you, it means a lot. Michael, let's just put this up here really quickly. Get a Go Kaiser Seahawks up there. Thanks for all you do for NAIA. Well, hey, listen, we're going to meet in person at some point in time. That much is a guarantee. If you'll let me wind down here for about a minute and a half. Everybody's back from all that they're doing tonight, and so I heard folks come in the door just a moment ago. Hopefully they have food for me, and so I'll be ready to eat just a little bit once we get done here. It is it's nearly 8:30 Central Standard Time here. We have Sioux City on the list of places to go, and that's a definite. But one of my daughters has in-laws in Tampa, Florida. So I don't know how far you are from Tampa, Michael, but that could be one of those things we get to meet up somewhere. And by the way, I want to explore a little bit more of Tampa, Florida as well. I've been on the East Coast before. I've been over to Daytona. We've been that area, let's see, St. Augustine, been up there a couple of times, and that's a lot farther north, I know, than where you are, but that would be a lot of fun. But I can't even tell you guys how much it means to get to visit with you all each week and so many times during a week. And I know football season, the regular season, starting to wind down. So many of y'all's teams, though, I know are going to be in the playoffs, and we can talk for a lot longer. But hope you get to be a part of some of the other sports as we talk about those things. But I said it, and I will say it again as I wind down tonight. To me, Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet and I, Jody and I know Joey and Jody, but anyway, Jody and I got to visit a friend of mine, one of my classmates from high school, whose daughter was in the hospital and had been there for a while. And I know from personal experience, what it means I've never known what it means to be in the hospital for. And so this summer and the month of August in particular, and all that we dealt with, that God has brought me through, and that God has brought my family through, it's perspective. And it was a privilege to get to go down and visit with them and pray with them today and talk to them, and just hopefully, be a light to say, listen, I've been where you are, and we're praying and we're believing God to get you out and on your way. And so when I say any more, to those of you that are still watching, if you're watching the live chat, thank you very much. If you are watching this long on the recorded end of it, you're watching the replay, you are an absolute trooper. When I say it's a privilege to get to talk to you every time, that I cannot mean it anymore. I'm thankful to God to get to do it. And so I just want you to know, with a smile on my face, song in my heart, you don't want to hear me sing right now. I actually can, but you don't want to hear me sing right now. It means so much to me to get to do this. And Jody knows that as well, and the kids all know that. So a shout out from all 5 of my children because they know you all mean something to me as well. The background, we're experimenting. Still not a fan of the lights just yet, so we're going to have to make some adjustments to the lights and put some different backlighting up here. So we'll see, but it's all a work in progress. But a little bit different look tonight. Same Studio B though. Studio B is we're still in the same place right here. We're experimenting. All right, 55 minutes tonight. You guys are troopers. For sure, Sunday night, live, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 o'clock Central, and wherever else you happen to be. I know, let's see. Let's see. Did Jeff come on here tonight? Yeah, Jeff. Thank you for stopping by tonight. And Jeff's in Mountain Time Zone, I believe. So shout out to Jeff, too. I didn't mention you earlier. Jeff, let's just put that up there really quickly. Roll Stangs. All right. Well, roll Stangs. We'll see how it all works out. I'm looking forward to watching these. I am so looking forward to watching these. And there is more time this week even than there was last week. All right, so let's go ahead and end the stream tonight. Thank you for watching, and shout out to everyone. If you join as a member, you're going to get to see your name come up, not unlike what is going to happen here. God bless you all. Have a great night.